You're listening to episode 103 of the Fed and Fearless podcast. On today's episode, Alma Simmons is answering the question, can weight loss and intuitive eating coexist? So stay tuned. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, a registered dietitian, nutrition business coach, and online entrepreneur with over 10 years of experience in online business. And I'm here to show you everything I've learned about creating a life and a business that nourishes you. On this podcast, we'll talk about the lifestyle habits, practical strategies, mindset shifts, and leaps of faith required to build a healthy body, a powerful mind, a strong spirit, and a successful business. Hey there, and welcome back to the Fed and Fearless podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, and we have a little bit of a controversial episode for you today. Now, if you're a regular listener, I have a feeling that you're going to appreciate the conversation and the nuance and the gray that we bring to the table in this discussion, but I just want to let you guys know that we are going to be covering a little bit of a sensitive subject for some people. And my guest today was brave enough to come on and talk about something that she has experienced some level of backlash discussing inside of our nutrition professional community. So the reason why I'm saying this before I introduce my guest is because I want to let you know that, we are going to talk about some stuff that could rub some people the wrong way. And if that's you, I would just encourage you to be thinking, what is it about our conversation that is triggering you? And is there something that you can take away, even if you disagree with what we're saying? If you know me at all, you know that I am no stranger to disagreement and controversy and being willing to, share my values even when they go against what maybe is popular or what's common. And so this is something that I want to bring to the discussion, and I want to make sure that we are opening up this podcast to a variety of different voices and letting people share their expertise, even if sometimes the topics themselves are a little controversial. So that's my little disclaimer, and I'm super pumped to have our guest on today. This guest is someone who is a Nutrition Business Accelerator alumni, and she's a dietitian, and she's super sweet, and I was just really pleased that she was willing to come on the show to talk about this topic, even though she was a little nervous because she has had some backlash before. So my guest today is Alma Simmons. Alma is a bilingual registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of Inspired Soul Nutrition LLC. She has over 12 years of professional experience and has counseled hundreds of patients and clients in the field of maternal and infant health, lactation, and chronic disease management. Alma has also taught many nutrition and healthy lifestyle courses in both English and Spanish. Her mission is to empower women over 40 to transform their overall health through lifestyle nutrition. In her private practice, she teaches her clients how to master flexible nutrition and lifestyle changes so they can end the cycles of chronic dieting and lose weight without deprivation. As a result, they are able to live a more nourished, healthy, and vibrant life. So like I said, Alma is awesome, and she is no stranger to the controversy that can come up when talking about weight loss and intuitive eating and all of the fun stuff that seems to be so polarizing these days. And it was just a really fun conversation for me to be able to talk to somebody who sees things very similar as I do. So without further ado, here is Alma Simmons. All right, everybody. Well, I am so excited to have with us on the show today, Alma Simmons. Welcome to the Fed and Fearless podcast, Alma.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you for having me. Very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Alma and I have known each other for over a year now, and I know that we kind of run in the same circles as far as the nutrition space is concerned. And we've seen a lot of controversy coming up in the groups that we're in about the topic of weight loss, intentional weight loss, and intuitive eating, health at every size, all that good stuff. And I know that this topic can be pretty controversial. And so, Alma is here to chat about it and to bring her perspective to the table. And so, I like to have these conversations because I do think that it can get kind of polarizing and black and white, and it's either you're in this camp or in this camp. And as I'm sure you could agree, Alma, I like to look at the gray and say like, okay, well, is it always like that? Or is there, some times where it could be, different? So I really appreciate you coming on to chat with us about this topic today.
Oh, absolutely.
So for our audience that doesn't know you yet, do you mind just quickly telling us your story about how you became a registered dietitian?
Yeah, so I have a very unconventional journey to becoming an RD because I am originally from Mexico. I was born and raised there, and I went to college there. I went to school. I did my undergrad in Mexico City. And again, unlike many dietitians who kind of like have this passion or went through something in high school and decide that they want to be a dietitian, that really wasn't my dream. I really didn't know what I wanted to do when I was 18 years old. That was the option I was given, from my parents that, I could just come from a very traditional conservative family, and, taking a year off to decide what you want to do after high school was not an option for me. So I knew I liked healthcare. I knew, I had different interests in healthcare. And so I guess nutrition was my option. And so during my undergrad, I did meet who is now my husband. And so he was studying abroad in Mexico, finished my undergrad and did my internship in Mexico. I got my license and my degree in 2005 in Mexico. And then I moved to Columbus, Ohio in 2005. And when I moved here, I realized that I just couldn't practice as a registered dietitian. So I needed to do things over again. I had to take classes again, do another internship, take or pass the test. So that was like a whole, like I added another 5 years because in between I got my RD in 2012, and between 2005 and 2012. So I was going to school, I became a mom, and I was working part-time as a medical interpreter. So that was all happening simultaneously, and finally got my degree in 2000. Well, not my degree, but my registered dietitian credential in 2013. So that's a little bit of, and then now, fast forward, I've been in multiple jobs. I've worked in many fields of dietetics. And right now, finally, thanks to COVID, I kind of dove into the whole private practice, virtual business world.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's dedication. I feel like if I had done my whole degree in the dietetics field and then had to do it again, I'd be like, I feel like there's an easier path here.
Trust me, Laura. When I was doing my internship at the same time as I was working as an interpreter, I got to know all the fields of healthcare, and I was like fascinated. Like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I liked everything except dietetics. I really I'm being honest. Like, I did not like dietetics, but I love nutrition. I love nutrition. I kind of live and breathe nutrition, but the dietetics, the clinical field had really, I don't know, it wasn't like in my interest. But in the end, I was encouraged by family members again. I'm like, oh, you got to finish. You work so hard. You invested so much time and money and blah, blah, blah. So, I went ahead and finished and really no regrets, because I think this is a great opportunity for me to really get my message out there, my personal message in nutrition, which is what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like if all you were ever exposed to in nutrition was like the hospital clinical side of things, I mean, I certainly don't think I would have gone into dietetics if that was the job path. And not to knock anybody who does that. Obviously, it's a very important job. So it's not like, everybody needs to be a private practice virtual dietitian, but it is something where for those of us who really just love food and love working with people and love coaching and all of that, I can't imagine the hospital job being something that would be attractive. So
right. No, and I had a lot of colleagues and, a lot of friends that really liked it, really enjoyed it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awesome because, we need you. We need everybody.
I mean,
so
I almost feel like clinical, and I don't want to go too far in that rabbit trail, but I almost feel like clinical is like mostly math.
Mm-hmm.
It's like mostly figuring things out from like a logic and math perspective. And some people just love that. And it just was not for me. So
same.
So that's so funny. I would have never guessed that was your path, but I guess everybody comes to it differently. And it's good that you have a mission, because I'm sure that if you didn't have that passion for helping people, you probably wouldn't stick with dietetics because I'm sure there's a lot of things that you could do really well. So, but we know that in our space, it is a great opportunity to really help people. And food is one of those things that, I mean, it's not like anybody can skip it, right? Like everybody has to be
Exactly.
making food choices multiple times a day. So there are a lot of foundational ways that we can help somebody's life be better. So, speaking of helping people's life be better, let's talk about this controversy because I think this is something that I don't know if we'll ever get to a place where people can really agree on stuff, but I don't know. Maybe that's just human nature in general. We're always going to be arguing about things. But I know that you've seen this before where even in like our professional Facebook groups and that kind of thing, there's just this really big rift in either you're like a health at every size, intuitive eating, non-diet dietitian, or you are somebody who like really focuses on weight loss, doesn't believe in health at every size. Like that's the other side of the equation. And I know, most of the people I interact with, a lot of people in the NBA program, which you're a part of, I think there's a lot of gray area that we all like can see, but for whatever reason, it really does seem like it's this like team sport that's happening with who's on what side. So, just from like a big picture perspective, why is this something that you have spoken up about?
Well, precisely. It's interesting that you like bring it up this way because I actually was one of the dietitians in large groups that I think I opened a can of worms one day because I stumbled upon an article that talked about intuitive eating coexisting with weight loss. And when I read it, it just resonated so much with me. And I'm like, oh, I need to share this. I need to post this because this is how I feel. And at the time, I really didn't mean to cause a turmoil. I mean, I know that I know that this polarization has existed for a while, but it wasn't the intention to, getting in a fight with anybody. But I'm glad I did that because I realized like how far as colleagues we would, I don't want to say disrespect each other, but really attack each other without even knowing our why behind and our purpose and why we do the things that we do. I feel like in the intuitive eating haze world, they are trying so hard to educate us on this movement, on this philosophy. And I get it. I actually stumbled upon intuitive eating back in 2017, 2016, 2000. So this is not new to me. And it really resonated with me. And I think why it resonates with most dietitians is because in the end, we're tired, right? We're tired of all of these fad diets that are out there. We're tired of fighting with an industry that, is pretty messed up, getting people hooked on these crazy weight loss methods. And the haze, I think the proponents of haze, I understand now that they speak in a language and the way that they do actually is because they have been hurt. They've been hurt by our brutal system, which is a reality. I mean, and I'm not going against that. I understand now why they are practicing from a social injustice lens, which truly exists. And then there is the other side of dietitians who genuinely want to help people lose weight because we know it's possible, because the science is there. And the other side argues, well, there's no science that says that sustainable weight loss is, possible or that losing weight is healthy. We're just oppressing people, blah, 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 all this noise. And my argument is, of course, there is science. We have not. I mean, we've been, even though nutrition science is never, the most accurate, assertive, it's always evolving. There is, I mean, if you go into the National Weight Registry, if you see studies from, I forget his name, I think it's Hill, Dr. Hill, and I don't know, I can let you know that these two, but there are references of how people that have maintained their weight for more than 10 years, what they do. So the research is there, and the research is there also for the other side, for intuitive eating. Yes. If you read the principles of intuitive eating, it's nothing new. It's stuff that dietitians do I first learned about these principles with mindful eating, not intuitive eating. And now when I read the intuitive eating book, like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. It resonates perfectly. There are a few things that I tend to like not disagree with, but I think that overall it's a great concept. And the argument of this post was, can intuitive eating and weight loss coexist? And a lot of people fought and said, no, it cannot coexist. You're oppressing fat people. And a lot of dietitians resonated with the article too, because they're stuck in the messy middle, right? There is a gray area. Like you said, there is an area of, oh gosh, more than 50, 100 shades of gray. And in the end, what resonates more with me is you can actually lose weight sustainably using a balanced lifestyle approach. You are a product of your habits. And even in intuitive eating, like the last principle is, which I don't know if it completely makes sense to me, like honor, or, it's something about gentle nutrition, like practice gentle nutrition. And what they're trying to say is, what you eat more of consistently, is how it's going to affect your body. I'm like, well, yeah, well, this makes sense. This is nothing new. I know, we know that, but what does that have to do with somebody that's trying to help somebody lose weight in a sustainable manner? What does that have to do with fat phobia and oppressing people and, and contributing to diet culture? Oh gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think part of the challenge can be this idea that it's kind of like listen, I'm not an expert in these areas, so I'm not going to pretend like I'm some like HAES researcher or something. And HAES, if people are not familiar, stands for health at every size. It's almost like, I don't think any of us would argue that you could be healthy at a large variety of sizes, right? Like there's a lot of different body types out there that can be healthy. And I do think that our culture has some pretty messed up beliefs around what, like especially women, but people in general should look like and what makes a good body versus a bad body. And, I know I've had personal experience with disordered eating. And so I get that like not judging people on their appearance or their size is really important. And all the fat phobia and the fat shaming in our medical field is obviously completely inappropriate and not good, right? Like, so that, all of that I am fully on board with. I'm like, yeah, great. We shouldn't be treating people differently depending on what size they are. However, I also think there is research, like you were saying, that there is a certain amount of body fat that becomes problematic in and of itself, right? It's like having a lot of excess body fat that's not actually necessary for your health, because we do know there's essential body fat, there's beneficial body fat that, especially women, we need to have some body fat for healthy hormones, all of that. But once we start to get past a certain amount, there are actual metabolic impacts of that. And so, unfortunately, I do think it's the case that for many people, losing the extra body fat is actually what's going to create the health improvement, right? And I think that's where there starts to be this like disconnect with some of the really staunch proponents of health at every size, because I feel the impression that I get is that they don't think weight loss in and of itself is ever something worth focusing on or working towards, because they don't see it as being beneficial. And obviously for the vast majority of like people who are, kind of in the normal healthy weight range that just want to look like a supermodel, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people that are dealing with metabolic issues that are driven by excessive body fat, right? So I just feel like we need to get to a place where we can talk about those issues and not make it about some kind of like moral failing or, oh, you're a terrible person, or, oh, like you deserve to be treated like a second-class citizen because you're having that issue. Because, we can talk about stuff like, heart disease, diabetes, PCOS, the different conditions that are very much driven by excessive body fat. We can say that, hey, those issues are harmful to that person's health. In general, our healthcare costs in this country are like through the roof, crazy high compared to other countries. So, it's kind of a national issue that our population is not very healthy. And I think we can be really objective about it without then treating somebody poorly or, blaming everything that they're experiencing on their weight, which obviously is not helpful or appropriate. Is that how you feel about this? Because I know I just went on a little bit of a
No,
monologue.
absolutely. This aligns 100% with me because I actually remember like one of the comments that really stuck with me, like on that Facebook thread was, helping people lose weight intentionally is diet culture. And that, basically dietitians that are helping people lose weight are fat phobic and we are contributing to diet culture and oppressing people. And it's very hard now. I feel like it's almost like their minds have been completely, and I don't want to say brainwashed, but it seems like now there's something like blocking the mind. Like, why are you going against science too? Because the science is there, the evidence that there's a body of evidence that's saying that when you lose 7%, just 7% of your body weight, you can have metabolic improvement depending on the chronic condition that you are suffering. But it really depends on how you're going to lose that weight. It depends on the outcome. And so this is my field of practice. This is where, that's why I created my program and my process, is because I know that I'm not about dieting. I'm getting people off the dieting cycle. And yes, what I don't think that a majority of people, when it comes to being in the gray area between intuitive eating and weight loss, is that the bottom line and the root cause of all of this disproportion in our health is our food supply. Our food system it's terrible. It's just absolutely horrible. And yes, a lot of people, we don't, whether we like it or not all people have access to healthy food. And I've been there, I've worked directly with people. Like I've worked with hundreds of people from all walks of life, low income people, middle class, with different ethnicities. And in public health and hospitals and every setting. So I've been there with real people. And to me, it's unfair that if somebody is coming to me and is asking me for a healthy way that they can start losing weight so that they don't go on a diet, to me, that's not oppressing them. To me, that's giving them tools and helping them. And so if you're coming in and telling me that I'm oppressing people or that I'm fat phobic, come on, give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of the analogies that I really like is the idea of helping somebody who's in debt, like get on a budget and manage their money better. It doesn't mean that you hate poor people or that you think poor people are dirt or something like that. It's just, you could say, hey, there's improvements you can make to your finances that can help you start to save, help you start to like be more financially healthy. It doesn't mean you have to be a multimillionaire, right? Like, the same as you don't have to look like a bikini model, but just those improvements, those habits, those choices that people are making, the reason why they're making the choices, because a lot of times it comes down to, beliefs about themselves, traumas that they've had, that kind of thing. And it's like, nobody says, oh, you're poor phobic if you're helping somebody get out of debt and get on a budget. So why do you have to be fat phobic to help somebody start making better choices that are going to help them lose weight, right? It's like, I just don't get it. And like you said, I think there are a lot of people who they've kind of like decided what they believe, and that's fine. People can believe what they want.
It's fine. And it's understandable. Like I said, I think it comes from a social justice lens. I understand it because I've read the books, but I don't want to become that person. I think, and I've always been that person since I graduated, that when it comes to the science of nutrition, I've always been in the middle. I always hold a middle ground to everything, because I was also, when I had my second child, it was in like 2013, 2014, in this area where like the real food movement and paleo and all of that was becoming very popular. And so all of these blogs, I remember like started telling people that, to eat saturated fats and the fat was healthy, and don't eat brown rice, eat white rice, and don't eat sugar, but honey is okay. And all of these things that, organic meats, like all of these things that, created a boom. of confusion. And again, I enjoyed a lot of the science though from these because a lot of it was very interesting and very true. But the things, again, everything that goes on the internet already has a biased perspective. So when I started seeing blog posts and then it went to Facebook and then it went to Instagram, I'm like, okay, no, well, let's stop right there. And so it came to an extreme that I feel like as a result from that wellness movement, now we're going like in the complete opposite way with intuitive eating because, all of this madness of restriction, deprivation, and being like almost like an orthorexic person, which, the perfectly healthy eater, it created a lot of eating disorders, even amongst our profession. A lot of dietitians I feel like that are intuitive eating are recovering from anorexia. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I see that. And so when I started seeing intuitive eating on Instagram, what kind of blew my mind is that, okay, fine, you are recovering from an eating disorder, and I can't imagine how hard it was. And I understand you, but when you're holding a bag of Skittles with your skinny body and telling people that it's okay, to eat the Skittles or to binge or whatever, you are giving a message to every person out there. It's not just the people who are recovering from anorexia. It's also the people who are recovering from binge eating disorder or who are struggling to lose weight or that have like hundreds of pounds that they probably want, wish, or were told that they need to lose. This is so difficult for everybody, for the general public to see and sort out all of the messages on Instagram because it's a visual tool. So if you're seeing this, skinny dietitian showing out there, I don't want to say junk food because I don't like to label food, but really something, just eat the donut, it's kind of difficult to people to understand and sort out these messages. They're like, okay, well, do I eat the donut or do I eat the kale? What is it going to be? And so people, if for us, for dietitians, I know that many of us probably should be a little more informed in intuitive eating and HAES. We always have something to learn. I know I'm learning something new every day. But, can you imagine if we still have a lot to learn as dietitians? Can you imagine the public, how confused they are now when they're receiving, all of these messages? They don't know where to go, what to do. And one of the points of the article is that Bonnie wrote that I posted on this group is that, a lot of dietitians are not a lot of dietitians, I'm sorry. A lot of people are getting turned away by intuitive eating dietitians for weight loss, and they still desire to lose weight. So I feel like this is where, I want to be there for those people. I want to be there for you, not with crazy diets. I really want to teach you how to honor and respect your body. And then we can go from there and follow the process and what it truly takes if you want to improve your health and lose weight in a sustainable manner.
Mm-hmm. So what kind of things have you seen? Because I know you've worked with people before. And I remember actually last year you mentioned you had worked with somebody that I think I don't want to say effortlessly, but it was without dieting lost like 20 to 30 pounds or something. I could be misremembering this, but I feel like you had said that when you were working on your process that you were testing it on a client.
No, that was my dad.
Oh, so you even better.
Yeah, that was my dad, and this was I guess my most inspiring story and what led me to my process, because my dad had been a chronic dieter, for as long as I can remember. I think it was when I was a teenager, and so after I graduated nutrition school, he always asked me for diets. I need to lose weight. Please help me lose weight. Can you make a meal plan for me? And, there I was. I can't tell you how many meal plans I wrote for him, and I did, and for other family members. And you know how well that goes, right? With family when you.
Well, I mean, I'm not a big meal plan fan in general. So.
So when you hand out the meal plan, it just, they read it, take a look at it, maybe follow it for a week, and then it goes away. So that's my dad's story. And so when COVID hit, we had a very interesting conversation because he was really, he was scared and he was anxious, and my anxiety levels were up high. His anxiety levels are up high. I'm like, Dad, I really want to do something. I want to do something for you. And I want to do, something to, now that we're in confinement, I want a way to give back to people. And so I created a Facebook group in Spanish. And so I'm like, I'm going to start teaching nutrition, Dad. I'm going to start teaching nutrition classes. He's like, I'm ready. It's like, I'm ready for a lifestyle change. I'm not going to ask for any more diets because I know how you feel about that. And so I started teaching during the pandemic. I taught every week, and 5 or 6 people came to my classes, but one of them was my dad. He never missed a class. And so he learned all of these concepts. He learned how to balance his food groups. He started making the lifestyle changes. And so he lost 30 pounds. And so far, that was March of last year. And so far he's kept the weight off and he's maintaining his habits. So I was just really proud of him. And like, I know that this works. I'm like, I didn't put you on a diet. I didn't give you any crazy recommendations. I just taught you the nutrition principles that you're supposed to know. And this is what I'm like, that was my light bulb. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. I want to help women get off the yo-yo dieting cycle. And if I can help, women and their families and prevent their kids or their young kids or their teenagers prevent eating disorders, why not? This is like, I want to work with people before they get to that eating disorder. I do not want to work with eating disorders, but prevention.
Yeah. Well, and this might be kind of a random question, but as far as I remember, you operate as a bilingual dietitian, right? So you're working with Spanish population, or is it mostly people from Mexico and different parts of Central America?
Yeah,
or
my Facebook group is mostly people from Mexico, but there's a lot of Latinos living in the United States. But in my practice, I see like my program is actually in English right now. And, I want to see how the method and process goes and eventually be able to translate it into Spanish. But I also have a Facebook group in English. So I have two groups.
You're just running 2 different businesses.
I'm just running 2 groups right now.
So and
I've seen both English speaking and Spanish speaking.
Yeah. And the reason I ask is I'm just curious, do you find that the clients that you work with who are primarily Spanish, or maybe they're 100% Spanish speaking, do they struggle with different things? Like, do you have to have the same conversations with them as you do with the English speaking? Because I guess the reason I ask is because I wonder, all of this stuff that you were talking about, like fad diets and all of that, I feel like, having traveled to a variety of different parts of the world, I feel like America is kind of unique in how intense it is. And I'm just wondering, like the clients that you work with who are not from the United States, or they don't speak English, or they're not getting all of those messages that, Americans are getting, is there just like this other diet culture that's in Spanish, or do they have like a different type of experience that you've seen?
No, it's the same. Especially in Mexico, and I think in all Latin America, especially for women, like body image is a huge thing. So, and yes, they're into believing what they see online and going into fad diets. But I think the Latino population, so we have a struggle that maybe you don't see a lot in the Caucasian population, and it's chronic disease risk. Just, being like people of color, like we are like at higher risk of chronic disease management. And so a lot of people, I'd say a majority of the people who I've worked with that are from Latin America or have diabetes or hypertension or just, in general, a form of metabolic syndrome. And so I think that women who are in perimenopause or menopause, which is like the group that I'm focusing on right now, are struggling a little more with weight gain and chronic illness at the same time. But no, the diet culture is very real. And I don't really like that word, but yeah, it is real and it is happening. And yes, everything that happens, I feel here in the United States will immediately go, it happens in Mexico too, but they have like the same like the same desire to lose weight and not knowing what to do and not knowing how and being immersed in like, what do I follow? Like people still think that it's not possible to lose weight without dieting.
And is the food supply in Mexico similar to us where it's like tons of processed foods, big food industry influence, that kind of thing?
There is a ton of processed foods, but typically it really depends on the area that you're in. But I would have to say, so the food supply is not the greatest, but again, better than it is here as far as processed foods go. Like I remember, well, growing up, my mom always cooked a meal for us like every day. And she worked a part-time job, occasionally full-time hours, but is very common for, for even for working women to have a meal at the table cooked from scratch. So that's kind of what I learned. And when you go to the grocery store in Mexico, most of the aisles are like, a lot of people still get their food from the market, from fresh food from the market. But when you go to a superstore, grocery store, you have a lot of produce and then the processed foods aisle, but there's only one aisle of frozen foods, or maybe half an aisle. Like there is no such thing in having like frozen dinners because everything mostly is just cooked from scratch. And working people, the time who don't have time to cook a meal, we have small restaurants that are called fondas, where you can go and eat a full course meal for like $1. But it's a home cooked meal. So you can still have a home cooked meal for $1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like I was just curious about that because, just the way that our grocery stores in the United States are, where it's like, it's just like we have like an entire yogurt aisle, right? I mean,
have an entire aisle of chips.
Yeah.
It was a cultural shock for me when I moved here. The grocery store was very interesting to me. I found that there were like 7 different flavors of waffles and 100 varieties of yogurt and a whole aisle of chips and 2 aisles of soda. I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I feel like that's the part that the intuitive eating piece doesn't always capture is just, it's hard to intuitively eat when food is designed to make us want more of it. And even with all the variety and everything, it's like, I mean, I'm sure, well, I shouldn't say I'm sure. I wouldn't be surprised if you've had moments before where it's like, you just ate more, and I've done this, you eat more than really what you even wanted or felt like you needed because it was delicious or because it was just like you're munching away, not paying attention. And so it is one of these things where it's like, I don't think anyone should feel bad or, beat themselves up for eating something. But at the end of the day, it's their choices affect you, right? They affect your health. They affect your family. They affect, the future generations that are inheriting the world that we're leaving them. And it's just like, I don't think there's anything wrong with, first of all, education, right? Like understanding what do those foods do to your body when you eat too many of them. And then also just understanding how food affects not only your health, but weight. Because again, and this is something that I never understood this. I've never heard anyone say that someone who was underweight shouldn't try to gain weight because it's not possible. Right? Like it's always that losing weight's not possible. They say, oh, you can't change your body. Your body's going to defend the size that it's at. So you could tell me if you've heard this, but I just literally have never heard a dietitian say to somebody who was quote unquote underweight or felt like they wanted to put some weight on to feel healthier, oh, don't even bother because, there's no evidence that you can change your weight. Have you ever heard that before?
I have never heard that before, but now that you're telling me, like it would make total sense to hear that because, things have gotten so extreme. Like it's almost like a biased perspective too. Like you're defending a point of view and it's just the whole fat phobia thing. Oh my gosh. I don't know where this is going to lead us to, but I agree with you. I completely resonate with what you're saying.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just one of these things where, I've helped people gain weight before and nobody judged that. Nobody said you're like, thin phobic, helping this person gain weight or whatever. So anyway, I'm sure somebody will disagree with this, but
well, here's the thing. You can have thin privilege, but you can't be thin bias. Like, does that make sense? I mean, it doesn't really make sense to me, but I know that's another word that I kind of like don't resonate a lot with, is the whole thin privilege thing. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. There are people that have the privilege to have a thin body, I guess, if you want to call it that way. But we don't know people. You don't know if that thin person is even healthy. You don't know what that thin person is doing every day in their life to have the body that they have. It's just, I think we're just basing all on appearance and not actually on true health and lifestyle. And not considering that physical and mental health is, just as important too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, this could be very controversial, but I'm going to say it that, when people say, I'm like, do I really want to go here? There's this concept that people will say, well, you don't owe anybody your health. And on one hand, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense, but also, like, we're all paying for health insurance. So kind of like it's kind of going to get out of hand. We can't just all do whatever we want and just say, well, somebody's going to pay for this, right? Because that's the direction that our country's heading in. And again, it's not to say that there's not, challenges that people face or, food deserts and all this stuff that we learn in public health. Like, yes, that stuff needs to be addressed. It needs to be fixed because that's a huge reason why a lot of people are experiencing chronic illness and having a hard time not gaining weight, right? But I do think when people start to say that you don't owe anybody your health, it's like, well, what about, the people that are paying for health insurance that is what's covering these illnesses, right? And it's like, I don't know, it's really interesting because I feel like when you talk to like even Asian cultures are very community oriented and they're always very mindful of like, how do your choices affect the community, right? And I think it's interesting with COVID, that was like a huge thing, like, oh, you have to do this. You have to wear a mask because you're going to hurt somebody else if you don't. So it's like, it just is weird to me that we have certain decisions that are like, you need to do this because you're affecting other people. But then when it comes to making choices that could affect your healthcare costs, then it's like, oh, but it's none of your business and you don't get to tell someone that they should, take care of their health. So anyway, I'm sure I will catch some hate for that. I honestly am like, don't even care. It's one of these things where I'm just of the mindset that I think people should be consistent with their perspectives. And if you're going to tell people that they need to do certain things to protect others from COVID and that kind of thing, then we should be consistent and say, if you're making choices that are bankrupting not individually, obviously there's no one person that's responsible, but as a society, if we all don't take responsibility for collectively our health, it's like, where is this going and where is the end point, right? Like, we're not going in a great direction and we all have to take responsibility for our own circumstances because it does affect other people, even if it's not as direct as something like passing COVID on.
Right. Since it's not like an acute problem right now, they don't see beyond what could happen in the future. And yes, I agree with that. You don't look at the long-term effects right now of food. And I'm telling you, I think intuitive eating, and like if it continues in the direction that it's heading right now, I think it became viral on social media. But people didn't really know about this from their health care professional in real life, in reality. So when it becomes a fad, I'm going to get a lot of hate like you for this. I hope it doesn't. But if it becomes a fad, what are people going to be left with? So that's something to reflect on. There needs to be people who can still talk to people, educate people, give them a message, and they deserve to know the truth. They deserve to know the science. They deserve to know the research. And they deserve to decide what is best for them, what is best for their health, what is in their best interest. So again, I think there will be a disconnect. I don't think that intuitive eating can be used as a tool for weight loss. I understand that now is very clear to me. But I think that if you look at the principles, if you break them down in the end, those are the concepts that dietitians that have the ability and that know the research and that want to help people lose weight in a sustainable manner. I think that we're inclined to these principles, maybe used in a different way. Just because we don't follow like a certain order, or just because we don't do exactly how, what the intuitive principles are. They're just evidence-based solutions with a different name. And we can, the intuitive eating as a tool, no, not for weight loss, but some of the principles, are used for a healthy lifestyle, and sustainable weight loss comes as a result as a healthy lifestyle. So.
Well, I love it. And I'm sure we could talk about this for a long time. If I should give people like a fake email address if they want to send complaints. But, at the end of the day, I think it's important that we can have these conversations and not let everything be so black and white. And it's like either you're believing this or you're wrong. I'm always open. I've made mistakes in the past. I've said things that later I was like, that's probably not really accurate. So, I think we always need to stay open-minded to different perspectives. And like you said, I think there's a lot of really great stuff that comes out of the HAES research world, the intuitive eating research world. And there are people that definitely just need to focus on the intuitive eating piece. And I think it's great that there's dietitians that supply that as a service, and the people that need it, it's awesome. So I just think, we need to stop trying to make everything work for everybody and really let it be individual and let people decide like what their goals are. And, if it means that some of it has to be breaking some of the shame and body image issues that people have off of them as part of that, then that's great. But that doesn't mean they may not still desire to like you said, 7% of their body weight may hardly be even something that changes their, pant size or something, but that can lead to so many positive changes. And, I think the pendulum's going to always swing. So there's always got to be people that are there to kind of like bring some reasonableness, I guess, some neutrality, some, ability to look at things and really see all perspectives. And it sounds like you're doing a great job of that.
Thank you. And Laura, to the last thing that you said about like people helping or dietitians helping people with eating disorders, certified intuitive eating disorder dietitians. I'm so grateful that we have them. Like you said, I'm glad that there's people, because some people really need help that, that have eating disorders. I wish that in our profession, just as we know, like you and I know that if there's somebody that we can't help or that's beyond our limits, we have dietitians to refer these people to. We have professionals to refer people to. I wish that we come to the day that certified intuitive eating dietitians, if they have somebody that wants to lose weight and they are unable to help them, that they consider us also, that they consider their colleagues and not just like shutting down on them. Like, I wish that the day will come where they can feel grateful too, that they have colleagues, that they can help people lose weight in a sustainable manner, not with crazy fad diets. And for people who don't have eating disorders. So I guess though, that's just a final thought. Like we should be able to come to that agreement or to that, to that point that we can collaborate with each other instead of attacking each other.
I love it. Give you a little mic drop there. So, well, Alma, it's been really awesome to get to chat with you about this. And I love getting into these controversial topics, even though, sometimes it can be a little scary since we know how the internet can be. But I know there's going to be a lot of people out there that are grateful to know that they're not alone in thinking this, and a lot of people in general that don't want to feel guilty about wanting to lose weight and want to know that they can work with somebody who, sees them as someone who can make decisions for themselves, can, weigh the pros and cons, can decide, what, even if I love my body, that doesn't mean I can't do something to change it, right? And so, if somebody did want to work with you, whether they speak English or Spanish, because I know you can do both, what can they do to connect with you further?
Well, so my website is almasimmonsnutrition.com. And I'm on Instagram and on Facebook. On Instagram, my handle is Inspired Soul Nutrition. And my business Facebook page is also Inspired Soul Nutrition.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure to link to those in the show notes. And since I know that you've mentioned that you listen to the podcast, I'm going to throw the one question at you that I didn't include, and that is, what do you believe makes somebody more than a body?
Oh, well, yeah, I think just our spirit, our energy, our purpose. I think our purpose in life is really what keeps us connected as humans. So yeah, I think those three: spirit.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Alma, for your time and your willingness to get into the tough stuff with me today. And thanks to all of you for listening. We will see you here next week on the Fed and Fearless podcast. Take care, everybody. Are you a nutritionist or dietitian struggling to figure out how much to charge for your programs and services? Maybe you've heard that as a nutritionist, you should just charge what you're worth. But this way of thinking can cause you to either undercharge your clients or work yourself into the ground trying to earn your worth. As a healthcare provider, you can't set up a pricing structure that forces you to sacrifice your own health and well-being in the name of your business and your clients. But I promise it doesn't have to be this way. When you download my free profit planning workbook, I'll walk you step by step through the 10-step process for determining the right pricing for your nutrition business. As a nutritionist, you have the power to completely change someone's life for the better. There's huge value in that, so it's time to stop underselling what you do. By following along with this worksheet, you can determine exactly what you need to charge to achieve your revenue goals with ease. I'll teach you everything I've learned about pricing from growing my own nutrition business to over $250,000 in revenue annually and helping other dietitian and nutrition entrepreneurs hit their first $10,000 to $30,000 months and beyond. To get your free workbook, go to lauraschoenfeld.com/profit, PROFIT, and grab your copy today, so you no longer have to wonder how to set the right rates for your incredibly valuable nutrition services. That's lauraschoenfeld.com/profit. It's time to make the money that you deserve as a nutritionist, and I can't wait to help you get there.